Bizarre Brain Comics.
From the heart of the jungle comes a savage cry of victory. This is Tarzan, Lord of the Jungle.
Oh. Hello, Gary here for Bizarre Brain Comics. This is where I like to take a look at some older comics, talk about the creators, the stories, and the art. This time I want to talk about a comic strip. This is the Tarzan comic strip, primarily done by Hal Foster. This is a hardback book published by Flying Buttress Classics, Classics Library. There were 18 volumes. This is volume 2. There were 18 volumes of this, which covered, there may have been more, but 18 which covered Hal Foster and Byrne Hogarth. These were just featuring the Sunday strips, not the dailies. The dailies were different artists and writers and different adventures. They weren't tied directly together. Like I said, there's 18 in this. I have 9 of them. These were published printed in the 1990s. I think this one was from 92. I think is what it says. No, I ain't gonna worry about it. I think it was 92, and the last of those 18 were published in 97 or 98. I can't remember. Okay. Now yes. Born and orphaned in the African jungle, raised by Kala the she-ape. He grew up to become king of the tribe of apes, and eventually to ascend to the House of Lords in Great Britain. That is Tarzan of the Apes. Yeah, but nobody's interested in him being in the House of Lords, and he didn't spend much time there anyway, so he didn't do any real governing. And did he? If you're familiar with the books and such, he spent almost all his time in Africa on his estate there, or wandering around, discovering lost civilizations, lost worlds, filled with strange beasts and stranger people, and having wild adventures. The Tarzan comic strip. Okay, Tarzan is a character first appeared in the 1912 novel Tarzan of the Apes by Edgar Rice Burroughs, and it was serialized in the pulp magazine All Story, and then published in book form in 1914. The first Tarzan film was released in 1918, and Edgar Rice Burroughs produced 23 other Tarzan novels before his death in 1950. And I think at least one, if not 2, of those books were published posthumously, and there was another one that was completed by another author, probably done from an outline or something, in the 90s. I can't. And that's called just The Lost Adventure. And I have read all 24 of the Burroughs Tarzan novels. And I love them all, some more than others. Most were also first published in the pulps, although beginning as a pulp hero, Tarzan of the Apes can now be considered a classic of literature, since, and you know when you see this, you know it's a classic, since it has been issued as a Penguin Classics edition. It only took, what, 80 years? Some come, or a lot sooner than that, such as, well, I think Kipling's The Jungle Books was considered a classic as far back as the 20s to 30s. And that was also originally published in magazines, their equivalent of the pulps at the time. But Tarzan made his newspaper comic strip appearance in 1929, and from what I understand, it is one of, if not the first, adventure comic strip in America. It was distributed by United Feature Syndicate, drawn by Hal Foster, and he had been an advertising artist and magazine illustrator. And Foster continued the Sunday pages until 1937, and the daily strip was at that time was drawn by Rex Maxon from 29 to 47. Byrne Hogarth took over the Sunday page. We've talked about Hogarth before, and shown in his Tarzan of the Apes graphic novel. He took over the Sunday pages until 1950, then handed it over to Bob Lubers. It could be Lubbers. It's spelled like it should be Lubbers, but Lubers sounds better to me. And some of the other artists who have worked on the strip, both dailies and Sundays, have been John Solardo, Russ Manning, we've heard his name before, Gil Kane, we've heard his name before, Mike Grell, who I don't think I've touched on yet, but Gray Morrow, who I've touched on several times, and it finished with Eric Battle in 2002, who I know nothing about. But there have been others in there. The strip has been featured in reprints since its completion in 2002, and also reprinted in Comic Review magazine. I have some of those, but I don't have any recent issues. Comic shops just don't carry them here. So, well, we're not going to cover a specific story. We're going to take a look at some of the stuff. So let us join Tarzan of the Apes in the fictitious jungles of Africa. Okay, now you can get a better view of that cover. This, of course, this is a cover from an illustration within its pages done by Hal Foster. And this particular volume covers 32 to 33. And that first one probably goes 29, 30, and 31. But before we cover that, I wanted to just show you here, because, and I've showed this once before, of course, one of my copies of Tarzan of the Apes. I have duplicates of several of the books, some hardback, some paperback. And these are just some of my favorites, of course. Tarzan of the Apes. I don't know if you can see very well. No illustration. The Son of Tarzan. And it's old. Just how old, I don't know. It doesn't actually say when this one was published in here, or was printed. But it must be late 40s or 50s, because it does have a frontispiece by Roy Krinkle, who I talked about a few weeks ago. And then, of course, we have here Boris Viejo cover for Tarzan the Terrible. This is one of my favorites. One of the Lost Worlds has dinosaurs and monkey men in it. You bet. And Tarzan and the Lion Man. This one has a mad scientist who turns himself into half ape and wants to become a man again, and creates a race of English-speaking gorillas. Okay. But Tarzan. Okay, let me take a look here at Foster's art. Forward by Ray Bradbury. And see some of the book covers. Hardback book covers. Those jackets. Here we go. Oh, this is... Because right off the bat, it starts with dinosaurs. Ooh. But you can see his... Okay, remember, this is... Each page of this book would cover one page, one Sunday page. So this is when a Sunday comics page was a page. It was big, printed in 4 colors process, and had a lot of illustrations. Now his page layout is the standard 4-tier, 12-panel page. When he would occasionally combine panels, like here, that combines 3. Here he combines 2. But that's basically the way it was. That's how nice, if naive, dinosaur looks like probably an Allosaurus. They call it a Tyrannosaurus, but it's got 3 fingers. So it's an Allosaurus, or similar. Tyrannosaurids had 2 fingers, but it wouldn't have known that then. Wouldn't have been very common knowledge, and the use of the tail is completely different. But then again, they didn't know that then. And here's in some cave with an explorer. And see his draftsmanship here. Here, this beautiful, beautiful draftsmanship. Great version of that dinosaur. Here he is, taking refuge in the cave. You see the great draftsmanship. Beautiful line work. Oh, that's a great one right there. And of course, the page usually had a page header like this, and that could sometimes be removed for space, and often it was designed so that some panels could be removed without hindering the story, to shorten it if necessary, if the particular page paper wanted it. And here he is with a Lost Civilization, another hallmark of Tarzan, the Monkey Man. Some cool stuff, but he did some meticulous research in some of these. Here, this. Here with the horses and the chariots, bows and arrows and weapons, the type of various types of architecture, and he did this for several years. Here he is with his apes, but his page layout varied very little, and as he primarily did what you'd call, what is referred to as theatrical staging. It was done almost as if you're seeing it on a stage, so you'd see the entire image with only an occasional mid-shot, very, very seldom a close-up or an extreme close-up. And this was common in the movies at the time, too. They were just getting away from that stuff, for more sophisticated framing. See, almost all the panels are the same size. That's volume 1. Okay. Volume 5. See, more of the same, but you see some maturation in his drawing, in his style. still beautifully rendered, but with a little bit more fine details. And some really beautiful, he did some beautiful work. Same kind of thing. And this one here is volume 6. This is the volume where he passes the hat to, or rather than passing the hat, passes the baton to Burne Hogarth. Hogarth. Oh, I can't speak. And he left. Hal Foster left Tarzan to go do his own strip of Prince Valiant. We'll see just a sample of that. Okay, and here we can see this is the last Tarzan page done by Hal Foster. Some really nice stuff, all nice stuff here. And then this is the first page drawn by Burne Hogarth. And you can see initially he did a fair job of imitating Foster's drawing style. But you can, if you're especially familiar with Hogarth, you can see the Hogarth in there. And he followed the same page layout with just an occasional here, all these over. But here you can see his natural style is coming through more and more, and you can really see some Hogarth stuff in here. Okay, then I want to go back here. As I said, Hal Foster left the Tarzan strip to go do Prince Valiant, and then here you see an early Prince Valiant page. And again, he stayed with the theatrical staging. It's just an occasional mid shot, but he varied the page layout a bit. This is from 1947, so at this time he was been doing Prince Valiant for about 10 years, and so his style matured. It's very lovely. Just some beautiful work. Very, very lovely. And the intimate details. And he did meticulous research for the settings and the costuming and the weapons, etc. Just some beautiful, wonderful work. And then there's volume 8. Although it says Foster on there, I think that's a mistake. It was Burne Hogarth. And Hogarth is still following the same page layout and still doing pretty much the same staging, but with a little bit more variety. But he's gradually getting more dynamic. You can see on the cover of this one. And this one too, his figures are changing, getting more and more dynamic. This one's volume 10. Somewhere along the line, he lost the leopard print on his loincloth. But this one's good stuff in this. See, he's changing it up a bit, doing some different angles, and some different staging. Still a lot of the theatrical staging, but not quite as exclusively. And it's all Hogarth. No Foster in that drawing at all anymore. Some really great stuff, and his pacing and everything is much more dynamic. Oh, some really beautiful stuff here. Look at this. That's a kind of shot you never would have seen with Foster. Much more dynamic, and Hogarth has been called, oh yeah, lush. The lush backgrounds, and you don't see much on the jungles and so much in this, but you see a little bit. But even that, you can see how lush his jungle work is. His forestry, just some beautiful stuff. number 13. And we jumped to number 18. Looks like he's got his leopard print back. And Hogarth has been called by a French newspaper or magazine, I believe, Michelangelo of the comic strip. Now, you heard me use a similar phrase before, because Gil Kane has been called the Michelangelo of the comic books. And I think both are true, just the way they do the anatomy. And it's very Michelangelo-esque. And probably by no coincidence, both Burne Hogarth and Gil Kane have been artists on the Tarzan comic strip. And here, in this volume, we see this is the last page, Tarzan comic strip page, drawn by Burne Hogarth. And that is followed up by here, the first page, drawn by Bob Lubers. And you can see some different, of course there's some similarities, and of course he's carrying on, trying to somewhat imitate the Hogarth style. I don't know anything about Bob Lubers, but I can see from this he is a fine draftsman, not as dynamic as Hogarth was in his mature phase. And of course, Hogarth went on to do other illustrations and have a school, and he taught for many years. Created some excellent books on drawing the figure. Dynamic figure drawing, I think, is one. One about drapery and clothing, and I don't know what all else. So, but he was he was obviously a fine artist. All of these guys did some great work, and to carry on the obviously fictitious version of the African jungles, some beautiful work in there, imaginative stories, some marvelous adventures. Worthy of Burroughs himself. And of course, Tarzan went on to it's popular in the movies. I think a lot of the writing from the movies really lacked a lot. Didn't carry on Burroughs very much. And of course, all the books, the comic books, which stayed closer to the books than the novels than the movies did, and then the radio shows. They had an earlier one in the 20s and another one in the 50s. Then there have been at least 2 animated TV series and 1 animated feature film, and just some good overall nice fun stuff. So we can all enjoy our Tarzan. As I've said before, Tarzan of the Apes is my favorite novel. Tarzan is my favorite fictitious hero, and Edgar Rice Burroughs is my favorite author. So this is some great stuff, and we'll be visiting Tarzan again in the future. So I hope you enjoyed this. Like, share, subscribe, share it with your other friends who just like Tarzan, who like the old comic strips, what have you. And remember, comics, yes, comics are art.